I had gone to JNU to listen to P. Sainath at the Freedom Square when the protests were going on. Keraleeyam, Umar Khalid and Anirban Bhattacharya were in prison. And when his speech ended, suddenly Shaila Rashid announced my name. So, as former president of the JNU Students' Union, I went and gave a speech which was recorded, and next day it became viral. And soon after, I was transferred to Dhenkanal. Before that, when Rohith Vemula committed suicide, some of us and students, and including faculty members, had organized a condolence meeting for Rohith Vemula. A large number of students participated. As a journalist and an academic, I would tell my students that in news you have to be completely objective and factual, and your credibility is most important. In news you cannot have perspective or opinion, not even analysis. In opinion you can have analysis and your perspective. But even in opinion you cannot be defamatory or inflammatory or communal or sexist or casteist or patriarchal or caste or whatever. You have to be very, very measured even in your opinion pieces. I have been edit page in charge of several mainline newspapers, so I followed this kind of media ethics. So that was you give freedom to the students. So that they did not like. They did not like my classes being packed. It is a very mediocre institution. Now it is completely taken over by mediocre RSS people. So the direct consequences of my speech in JNU, as well as my support or condolence for Rohith Vemula, and of course FTII in the background, led to my resignation from the IIS. It's a kind of a post-normal, post-truth, fake news, paid news crisis. It is a clear scenario where the corporate political nexus controls large parts of the media, especially the audiovisual media, especially the mainstream media. Thereby, news which is misinformation is given, propaganda is given, news without any factual or objective basis is being circulated, and like a campaign, like in the case of Riya Chakrabarti or Aryan Khan or Deepika Padukone or Shahrukh or Umar Khalid, or the students who have been put in prison, scholars because they oppose the CAA peacefully, or the campaign against JNU or Jamia, etc. So news which is actually there, which should be reported. Like even when Dainik Bhaskar sent so many reporters to cover the COVID in UP, which was not being covered, and then they found that dead bodies are floating in the Ganga, or they have been buried on the shores of the Ganga. Later, the Dainik Bhaskar was raided. So you have continuous this kind of like the way they report on Romeo Squad or Tablighi or love jihad or mob lynching, or not report about it, or the way they reported on the Tablighis. They said COVID jihad, putting the entire blame on COVID on the Muslims. Well, that also is a kind of a completely propaganda based on ideological, right-wing ideological doctrines, again based on fake news. And if you repeat that, the whole Goebbelsian notion in the Nazi time, that you repeat it lie 1,000 times, it becomes a truth. That is what they have been doing. Some of the channels are clearly aligned with the BJP. And some of these channels are continuously doing what is. So this has obviously led to a huge credibility crisis. There is no accountability. There is no way in the print media we at least have the Editors Guild or the Press Council. In the audiovisual media still has some kind of they also have some bodies, but nobody seems to be having any corrigendum also in terms of editors introspecting and saying, oh well, we made a mistake. This seems to be taking orders from above or somewhere, or not taking orders and reinterpreting signals, or like they kept on saying system at one point of time, or they are doing self-censorship for reasons which are driven by political establishments, the current political establishments, proximity to this media or control of this media, or say ad revenue, or say censorship, or say complete towing the line as stooges, media stooges, or a combination of all this. And this is more pronounced since 2014, and it is too clear and brazen not to ignore it. You can see the case of Tripura, where they bought off the entire media, and those from Delhi, honest reporters who went and tried to report, they put cases, UAPA cases on them. So much so somebody put up a Facebook post, sedition case was put on that person. So these are all signals that if you try to do something which we don't like, and if you try to report from the ground, and if you try to factually and objectively report from the ground, then we can put UAPA on you, or we can put you in sedition. So the Siddiqui Kapan's arrest and continuous languishing in jail is also a sign and a signal. All these are signs and signals. Muslim scholars, young Muslim scholars who are reinterpreting Indian politics and who are enlightened, progressive, secular, you are sending them to jail because you are sending a message that young people you should not think about Indian politics or society. You should not think of the history of Indian politics. You should not look at do not support the Indian constitution, especially young Muslim scholars. Enlightened Muslim progressive scholars, they don't like at all. They don't like this new generation of, they are not Islamic jihadis, they are all very progressive and very, very enlightened and secular and pluralist. A generation of Muslim boys and girls, you are putting them in jail. You are just sending signals. Banning hijab in Karnataka for young schoolgirls who are chasing their dreams and who have stars in their eyes is a signal also for polarizing in UP, as well as signal to young schoolgirls from Muslim community and also perhaps Dalit communities and other Christians and others that don't go to school. Education is not for you. So there is a contradiction between Beti Padhao and Beti Bachao slogan at 1/7 and other time you're stopping girls to go to hijab. So these are all a vicious and very, very dark and very, very ironical narrative, which is the dominant narrative which they have circulated since 2014. It's driven by corporate political nexus and money. People like you and Hardnews and Scroll and other small independent media are struggling. They're finding it very, very difficult to survive, but they are holding on to their media ethics, their values, their impartiality, and they are not succumbing or compromising with the establishment. They are not saying that if you are doing good work, we will report it. If vaccination is a reasonable success, we will report that its vaccination is success. If the Prime Minister cleans the Ganga in his constituency, we will say, yeah, he has cleaned the Ganga in his constituency. If he erects lakhs of toilets, we will say, yeah, he has erected lakhs of. But if he is not doing it, and if he say we are not doing it, it's not a crime. So it is completely driven by corporate political nexus. And journalists, some journalists have become owners, some journalists have become tycoons. So it is the greed of money which has led to this brazen shamelessness and the brazen destruction of the basic ethics and the conscience of independent journalism. India has never had a great tradition of independent media. Though we in the freedom movement, almost all freedom fighters did bring out newspapers. Even Gandhi brought out 2 newspapers, Young India and Harijan. But India did not have great tradition of independent newspapers in the post-independence period. They were all done by Marwadis and big business groups, from Hindu to Hindustan Times. Many of them were a part of the freedom movement and they did good work post-independence India. Even Indian Express played a very, very important and very, very brave role during the emergency and even after. Telegraph is still playing a very, very important and good role. And you can see Dainik Bhaskar has also given such fantastic journalism while reporting on the COVID in very, very adverse and scary circumstances. And later there were raids in their offices, but they stood their ground. So I would not say it is a complete black and white situation. There are grey zones also. Like for instance, I was a founder editor of Telka and we started the paper as a public interest cooperative paper. It was not driven by any we would have done crowdfunding. Hardnews was completely independent without any corporate reason. We got some advertisements. We did not take money from any corporate. It was completely journalistically driven magazine. So we are in great trouble. I presume Scroll and some others are also doing the same thing. So like Independent in London or Guardian in London, even earlier Statesman and Tribune, earlier Statesman and Tribune. Tribune is still a trust. Independent Guardian, for instance, completely cooperative, and they even now ask for $1 as donation. National Public Radio, Democracy Now, Amy Goodman's in America, Truth Out, The Intercept by Glenn Greenwald, who broke the Edward Snowden stories. They're all asking for money all the time, pro-Republica, from people, and people are giving. Their readers are giving. Because readers saying, we want good news, we want better information systems. So they are giving. So Guardian is the best newspaper in the world, and people are supporting it. India, if you people don't support you, neither the left nor the right. They will say, oh, we want good journalism, etc. Can we write for you? They will write for you, but they will not support you. You can die, they will not support you. India doesn't have a tradition of great philanthropy and great solidarity networks with even Le Monde Diplomatique of Paris is like that. But they don't. India don't have such great solidarity networks, supporting causes and supporting great journalism, etc. Really does not have. It used to have at one point of time in the freedom movement and post-freedom movement, but I think it's all but gone. Now India is largely the dominant elite, whether of the left or the right, is completely neoliberal, shallow, mediocre, totally impersonal, without any social engagement or any urge for social transformation, because they are so status quoist and so in their comfort zones that they need not do any social transformation. The left, of course, why should the left do any social transformation, whether it be fascist or anybody else? Because they are living in such comfort zones. So this is a whole Bhadralok upper caste scenario of the elite, left or right. It happened in the world many places, but in Europe people have resurrected. In Latin America there's so much of resurrection, but India you really don't have such a resurrection. Even in Nepal there are so many community radios which are run. In India situation is very bad. So we don't really have a culture of supporting causes and helping good journalism by donating money and other resources. Not the entire national media. We should not, look at things as black and white. We should also look at twilight zones, and we should not be, completely judgmental. As Dainik Bhaskar, you say, Indian Express sometimes does good. So Telegraph has consistently done very good journalism. So even The Wire and Scroll has done good journalism. So I presume there is, of course, the NDTV has been reasonably good and better than the rest of the audiovisual media. So you cannot call that. Swaraj TV till the time it existed was very, very good. I did 25 programs with Vinod Dua in prime time with major hits, and we were very, very honest and frank, and we did not hide anything, and we were not afraid. And he was one of the great television journalists India and the world has produced. So it was not completely black and white. I think there are possibilities of hope within that media. Hard news has not succumbed. I think the regional media is still, there is a lot of hope in the regional media. And the regional media is not completely. Media One case is one of the cases where they are trying to again send a signal and experiment of controlling someone in Kerala far off. They have not been able to control Telegraph or The Wire despite Pegasus. So they are trying to send a signal that if you don't toe our line, they are not able to understand that editors and journalists are very, very careful of naming people without evidence. They have named people with Aryan Khan is a criminal, Riya Chakravarti is a criminal, Deepika Padukone is a criminal, Amar Khalid is a criminal. They have named everyone without any evidence, and they don't do any corrigendum. Prime Minister's office does not have a press advisor. The Prime Minister has not done a single press conference. He has done only interviews with people who are who toe his line, with inane, stupid questions. Otherwise he does photoshops with some peacocks or some birds, and I don't think there is any possibility of the Prime Minister doing what Trump was doing despite a hostile press, or what Joe Biden is doing every day or every now and then. He is talking to the press at the White House, which is telecast all over the world, or what Angelina Merkel was doing. I don't think he's doing it like that, and he's more like Putin. Even Putin talks to the press, it seems. More like Xi Jinping and that kind of thing. So, independent media is struggling very hard, and they have not made it easy in any way. They are not giving advertisements to independent media, and independent media is not succumbing. And there is a very small independent media. It is not a very big, flourishing mainstream media. But Indian independent media is telling the truth, and it is the mainstream media now. Of course, because the future is also online. Print will also stay, audiovisual will stay, online will also stay. Because you don't need major corporate funding from any source, and therefore you need not bend and crawl. As long as it is not narcissism and only selfies and ice cream, then social media can play a role. Social media has also opened up a huge number of avenues. You can see Abbas Kiarostami's films, you can see Tarkovsky, Ritwik Ghatak, Satyajit Ray, you can see Dostoevsky, you can see Meryl Streep, you can access Al Jazeera straight away. They will send you notes. You can access Reuters, Washington Post, Economist. You can access Haaretz of Israel. So the realm of news, information, arts, culture, cinema, even you can get all the archives of Karl Marx. You can get the history of Marxism. There is Chomsky on Facebook. So if you are not into narcissism and selfies and ice cream and cats and dogs only, which is okay, you can do that, but you cannot do it day and night. So open your mind towards all this which social media is giving to you. Use social media for creative, political, radical, good posts, share good articles, create social media for a better society, for a society with compassion, progressive, radical, romantic notions of life, justice for women, respect for women, for Dalits, for Adivasis, for minorities. Write stuff which is of great use. Take pictures which would make short videos which can help liberate journalism from the shackles of what you call the neo-Nazi scenario we are trapped in. Because so we don't care for climate change or even good reportage on coronavirus. Guardian, for instance, has a whole thing on international coronavirus. They have on climate change every day, series of articles. Opinion pieces by George Monbiot is on climate change. Climate change is an international issue. It is no more issue which can be buried. We give lip service to climate change, but it is a real issue for a lot of people in the world. So, we are always lacking. There's a lack in India. What can we do? We lack good editors also who have large perspectives for thinking of climate change, or who are thinking of hunger and poverty, or rights, human rights, or great literature, or great cinema. We have very, very few editors like that. Kashmir is like an occupied country. How much is, except for Haaretz, how many Israeli newspapers are reporting on Palestine? International newspapers are reporting. Television channels have got 3-4 reporters. Haaretz is reporting. Al Jazeera is reporting. But similarly in Kashmir, post the clampdown when Article 376 was abrogated, I went there to Kashmir to report. It was very difficult to report from there. But there were lots of journalists who were trying to do reporting also. That also you have to see. But there has been always a problem. People don't go to Northeast. We have not reported on Armed Forces Special Powers Act. We don't report on Kashmir. We don't go to, why Kashmir and Northeast? We don't go to rural areas and do reporting. Even elections, we come in our air-conditioned cars and just do one-day rounds and take the bloody press release and go away. Hang around the city's peripheries. We don't go to rural areas or Adivasi areas to do reporting, even on election campaigns. So, what is the meaning of this mainstream journalism in that sense? There has always been this problem of. So, we lack good editors. There are reporters out there who will be ready to go, but we want editors and owners who will tell us who would want such news should come out. We did it when we were in Telka. I went to Kashmir when I was in Hardnews. I went to Kashmir again this time. I wrote for Hardnews and I was commissioned by a London portal. If somebody in London is interested, but we are not interested. I would say that follow media ethics, don't be sexist, racist, communal, casteist, patriarchal, supremacist. Don't celebrate violence. Write everything truthfully when you're doing news. Put perspective when you're doing opinion. Cover stories in public interest and human interest. Be adversarial as much as possible. Young people don't carry baggages of communalism or ideological hate politics. Young people are naturally ecological, they are secular, they believe in gender justice, they are against war, they want modernity, development. So the young people should report about Dalits, about women's rights, about Adivasis, about minority rights. Young people should go to report about migrant labor. They should report about people, hungry mothers, malnourished mothers in pandemic. They should report about working class struggles. They should report about farmer struggle. They should report about the Armed Forces Special Powers Act in the Northeast. They should report about the students' movement all over the country. They should report about great literature, great art, great culture, great cinema. They should report about international issues, what is happening in Burma, what is happening in Myanmar, what is happening in Nepal, what is happening in Chile. They should have open minds, their doors of perception should open, should have windows of enlightenment. Young people should liberate journalism from the shackles of what we have going through to a new language, a new idiom, a new narrative. Okay, thank you.